I love a good creature feature, and when the story can be both atmospheric and suspenseful, it's even better. Wolfkin is a Luxembourgish and French horror that takes a unique perspective on the coming of age experience. When single mother Elaine is disturbed by her son Martin's aggressive behavior, she visits his late father's estranged family in small town Luxembourg, which hides a much darker nature. When she realizes that Martin could become like them, Elaine is forced into a desperate fight for her son's future. Now, for a bunch of this movie, it hints at what is going on with this boy Martin. He's biting and attacking people at school, and some of the people were bullying him, so it could just be justified behavior with a preteen who's standing up for himself. But the behaviors go past that and they begin to get progressively more violent. And that's when Elaine takes her son to this massive estate in the country to visit the boy's father's family. Now, they're odd, a little skittish, and secretive, and they also have this air about them that instantly lets us know that they are keenly aware of what is going on with Martin. And while it scares them a bit, they are more excited that they have a grandson who's now going to become part of the family. Now, as the name implies, this has something to do with wolves. And the impressive thing, though, is that it's kind of assumed, at least only by the characters, at what is really going on, till about halfway through, and then we get confirmation. Now, this is a slow building drama, and really it's less of a horror and more just a dramatic thriller. And like so many non-English films, this one, it does not feel the need to fill every single second with dialogue. I mean, scenes transpire where we just watch a character contemplating what's going on. They're lost in their thoughts and their feelings. And it's a wonderful way to draw us into the characters and get sucked into the emotion of a scene. And the use of the musical score with long and slow camera push-ins, it adds tension and then mounting energy without rushing or having anything frenetic going on in the frame. Now, this isn't an overtly violent film. I mean, there are a few instances that are gory and messed up, but because they're used sparingly, they have more impact and resonance, not necessarily creating fear, but certainly some dread. Now, I really enjoyed the performances all the way around. I mean, we have Elaine, who is clearly bothered and concerned by what's happening with her son. But also, the thing that overrides all other emotions within her is her love and protection for Martin. I mean, she can be horrified and freaked out by what she sees transpire and then the changes that he's experiencing. But even with those visceral happenings, her care and devotion for him always take precedence. And we see that play out through very subtle body language. I mean, they were small moments, but incredibly powerful. And the grandparents, they're their own set of disturbing. I mean, they're both extremely odd and even a bit creepy, especially because they don't outright say things to Elaine. It's all mystery and obscurity. I mean, they just pretty much discount Elaine and then dictate what's going to happen with Martin and what he needs. The aura that's created, it's unsettling and domineering. But are they truly villains, or are they just protecting because they know more than Elaine? And we also come in contact with Martin's uncle. This dude is a piece of work. I mean, he's misogynistic, arrogant, highly volatile, and then unstably juvenile. He's easy to dislike, which is how we're meant to feel about him. But he's also somewhat shallowly developed. I mean, he's got a ton of anger and rage, but I was never quite sure where it stemmed from. Maybe it was because he was still stuck at his parents' estate, even though he lived in his own separate mansion on this huge property. Or maybe he was jealous that his brother up and left the family. I mean, regardless, the dude, he's dislikable and gross, and I wished for many bad things to happen to him. Now, I was really enjoying the imagery that's used, especially because at times I couldn't tell if it was just a vision or a dream or if it was holding the truth. Elaine has several dreams, and while one is pretty cringy because of that content, we also intimately get to know her desires and her longings. And there are times when she sees a wolf, and I love that it could be visible one moment and then gone the next, leaving us to wonder if it was even really there, and is she awake or is she asleep? That imagery, though, it also helps to play a larger role later down the story as Elaine gains a better understanding of what's happened to Martin's dad and then what the future could mean for Martin. Now, there's a lot of dreadful atmosphere that's captured in this movie. It's not quite oppressive, but it is disquieting. There are haunting visuals that come into play, and some of the makeup and the practical effects, I thought they were wonderfully crafted. I mean, they create realistic-looking body changes. It made me squirm a bit at how painful and gross they looked. But then, not all of the effects are excellent. I mean, there are a couple of times near the very end of the movie where CGI is used. It is horrid. I mean, the actions of those on screen and the movements, they're jittery and just incredibly fake looking. Now, luckily, these are quick and they're not repeated, because otherwise it would have broken me out of the tension of that arc. Now, the movie was first released at some festivals in 2022, and the original title is Kommunioun, which lends itself to a certain imagery and tone. And while this does have some minor religious overtones, they're barely utilized and then thinly explored. There's a scene towards the finale that begins to play on this, but it's rushed in its introduction into the story. I mean, the scene itself is brief, and while I think it's meant to have a large emotional impact, it didn't quite deliver. It's almost like the narrative has been building to this point, but very little of the story actually pointed there. So when we arrive, it's impotent and lackluster. I mean, I do like some of the meaning behind what we see, especially between Elaine and Martin, but I think this building climax would have been so much more effective if more time had been spent focusing on the coming actions and their meanings. So all in all, I enjoyed Wolfkin. It is a different telling of this sort of genre, and it more so really, it's a relationship drama around growing up and letting go. Loss, grief, abandonment, and longing all play an important part in the storytelling, led by two very capable actors who deliver a palpable relationship that is strained but also relatable. The horror aspects aren't played up effectively, and the supposed thrilling climax falls short due to lack of development, but the ending emotions are touching. Silence and patience with both camera work and dialogue help to create an unsettling atmosphere, elevating this movie from a thinly developed creature feature to something closer to art. There's sex, nudity, some profanity, and some very brutal violence. I give Wolfkin 3.5 out of 5 couches. Certainly look for this on VOD if you enjoy different takes on relationship dramas. So have you seen any good indie films lately? I'd love to hear about what you watched in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.